Hey, this is Pops, and yes, I finally read Something is Killing the Children. It's been a big hoopla for years at this point because we're on issue like 34. So over the break, I read all of them, got caught up, and I want to ask you a question. Is James Tynion still writing as though it's like 2017? Because this is like an all-girl show. Like, this is, I mean, it starts off that way, and I want to get through like why I think it's still good and still not the worst thing in the world, and why I think it will definitely be adapted at some point. It's really a very simple universe that we're kind of playing in. I want to kind of like pause right here because so this is Erica Slaughter on the right. There's a secret organization. Kids can see monsters. Monsters are real. Monsters are eating kids. She works for this organization that is basically monster hunters. That's the essence of the story. And it centers around her. She is like the uber, I don't want to say Mary Sue because she does get hurt and she is vulnerable and she is interesting. But this is not a book for everyone. Like, first off, it is a horror comic. Two, the art is a little bit off. It's not bad. It fits for its universe. But if they were to switch up artists, I'm not sure how well that would play. Okay. So basically, James Tynion is writing for graphic novels. So you've got like five, literally, it will say like part 1 of 5 kind of thing, right? So he's writing for graphic novels. Like this is the first 5. Now he does set up a little bit of cliffhangers usually for another sequence of books, but and the first sequence is like this one set of murders. They end up having to go to this one area in the country, deal with these little kids, and it's definitely an interesting element where you're trying to understand the entire world, how the monsters work, why she can see them, why she's fighting them, how the kids survive. All these kinds of things are working. She has this weird backpack, and she carries around this octopus. Let me find this octopus. Or find any other cool art or anything like that. This is just this. So this is a drama comic. This is not one where you see how she's drawn, where she has like this one eye. We should take note of that art because here she looks like she's 20 something, right? She looks like a New Yorker, but there's other panels where she's drawn and she looks like a 16-year-old teen. So it is a little inconsistent in how she's handled sometimes. So that's one area where I'm not totally sure I get how it will work. I'm gonna come back around to James Tynion some more in a minute. Here's our creature. So. Okay, so you get this story that kind of plays out over the course of several issues, and then the mystery that surrounds the organization that she's in, and all of that. And that's kind of how this kind of plays out for many issues. Let's get to the next story. This is, you can see the conflict is coming to a head before you get to we'll have a different story. So what's interesting is she's recruited by a lady boss, works under another lady boss who's in conflict. So other than like, there's a male leader of the group called the Dragon, who's like an Asian dude. He's kind of crotchety. He has total sketchy morality and eats gummy worms. That's the shtick. There's later in the story when they're in a different town. I think it's in the later 30s, and this sheriff in this town. There's really no other men, really, of any, and definitely none of any significance. Like, it's all about girl bosses, all about women. Because Erica Slaughter is interesting, she has the morality. Because what basically the twist is, at some point, the organization is more concerned about covering things up and keeping their secret, even to the point of being like incredibly violent and immoral and heinous, that's almost worse than the monsters. And it comes to a head because they end up at odds with her, where she's rebelling against the organization. She's not going to be a part of things anymore. So it keeps her character interesting. It keeps her character is the one we're kind of rooting for. But I will say a lot of this plays out almost too slow. I want to say we get into like, it takes until like issue 16 or something, issue 12 to 16 before we really get into the meat of some of these other kind of elements. And I wish there had been some better breadcrumbs along the way. But I can see why people are really into this. Like, I can see, especially with the graphic novels, you could read this one, then you could read this one. You don't have to read them. You don't even probably have to read them in order because they could probably just catch you up in a graphic novel. It'd be interesting to see when this gets adapted how they will cast certain characters, because her look and feel of things is going to be very crucial to if it'll work or not. And it is a very fine line for this to play out. James Tynion is playing, you know, the gay guy card to write females um, in a very way that doesn't always work. Like there's a lot of these women and how they're portrayed. They're yelling and screaming F and this and that at each other, and I'm like, we have been through all of this. This is going to end up getting adapted or coming so late to the game that we're all sort of like sick of this, because it's so full of those types of stereotypes and tropes that this story won't really get a fair shake. That it would have been one of the better ones, because at the core element, this is a hero character who is trying to do good and be good, and others, they're evil. These other women are evil. So there is a mentor. He's kind of like the fat guy who couldn't cut it in the field becomes like the tech guy. The mythology of everything is done very well. He is interesting, but it's not like he mattered that much. I don't know if I don't even know the direction they're going to go with the show, because like I said, there's so much. You could probably take the first 5 issues and do it in 2 or 3 episodes. Then you could do the next one in a couple of, I don't know where your lines will be in what they're going to cover is the problem. You know what I mean? I don't know how many episodes they're going to do or how they're going to adapt the show. But it's an interesting comic book to read. It reads pretty quick because it's not that complicated. It's pretty simple. It's just a monster story. But if you like horror comics and you're into creatures and stuff like that, it's fine. By now, trades are probably available. Original first print issues are a bit pricey. Boom Studios doesn't get credit for doing good stuff. They kind of got a weird printing mechanism, so I'm not totally I understand, and I'm sure how I could advise you on the valuation of those things. I would probably stay clear of spending a ton of cash from an investment standpoint. Maybe some of the very first print ones that are graded would be worth something over the long haul. There's so many variants and things like that. I wouldn't get myself caught up into too much of that kind of stuff. So a solid modern book, not something I think it's going to be one of those books that, like, have you ever read this? Will be a recommendation from somebody like 20 years from now, but it won't be something that we're going to hold to some gold standard or anything like that. It's just an interesting monster story with interesting character and things like that are kind of built around her. But there's nothing else. There's no secondary character that you care about. Most people are villains, right? I'm not rooting. I'm not rooting for any other character. Is part of it. Like I don't know what else I'm supposed to glom onto with this world. Which why I say that is because it makes the world very small. They build a big universe. They build all these interesting elements. At the end of the day, though, it's all so bad. I only root for this. Kind of like the opposite of Men in Black, right? In the Men in Black, you have this covert operation trying to cover things up. They're kind of keeping humanity safe. You're cheering for multiple characters to make sure they survive. And here, most of these characters don't care if the humans survive. They care more about their oath to the organization and the agency. So anyway, that's my take on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I am Pops.